I was gonna say,
Finally. Yeah?
yeah. I was gonna say maybe I'll switch to the laptop because it's I need to charge the phone, but I can charge the phone as long as it's in my hand.
Okay. So we are back. Yeah, I'm not sure it's sorry surfing, but I cannot possibly download your track. It's just breaking my internet somehow, some way. I'm not sure why. Okay, cool. Don't even no, he's back. He's back. So no, man, sorry. The thing is, like, you can send me the track, but before the stream, like right now, it's just not letting me download anything. Backstreet's back. Okay, so we're gonna go for the next track. Wait. So this thing is
the stream.
Streaming. Okay, Octogoat.
Oh yeah, here we are.
You're
back on Twitch.
You can hear me now?
Yeah. I can see you see you on Twitch.
Okay,
and hear you on my phone. So who is the first track? Who's the artist?
The first track is called Octogoat.
Octogoat.
Yeah.
Octogoat.
Octogoat. Yeah, the track called Ocasus Solis. I'm not sure even how to spell that. But yeah, let's do this. Cool, and we're back, and yeah, this thing's still going. So, Joe has to be excused for a minute, but he'll be back in 1 second. And okay, I'll start with the roasting on this. So, okay, uh, the track is nice, as Existo says. Arrangement is cool. The synths are good. You know, the synth line, like the synths level, it's, to me, it's fine. You know, like it could be a little bit more pushed, a little bit more saturation, but it's fine. But like I have problems, especially with percussions, like going from kick. You know, the kick could be a little bit lower in frequency, but you know that kick's fine. But then if the kick is that high, then the bass line has to be a little bit more low cut, so you don't have so much hum, like this like real low hum on the bass line that just destroys dynamics, because the kick is like cut around 60 hertz and the bass is really pushing around 40 hertz, and that's really not working with like, you know, those two things are really not working, and it's making the dynamic really like, it's not like, you don't have a really clean dynamic with the kick, you know what I mean? And that is that can be a problem. Then the snare, yeah, let's go to the rest of the percussions, not just the kick, because that's just levels and a little bit of equalization. But the snare also, it has a lot of like 250 hertz. You can hear that doo, doo, doo every time the snare hits, and that's adding to that frequency on the kick, which is usually the beef of the kick. Yeah, like you want, I mean, if you're making drum and bass, by all means, leave that frequency, actually boost that frequency, because you don't have a kick and the snare both together. But when you are making trance music, you don't want that frequency on the snare. Like, really, you don't. Like, because the kick is occupying all that space. And when they sum, like, when those two instruments are summing in the same place, it just makes like the kick goes and the bass goes and the snare goes, and it's a really, like, it's the loudest thing that I it's the only thing that I can hear. Like for the whole track I was just like, and that's you know, that you don't want that in trance. Apart from that, all the percussions, like all the percussion group, I would boost the level. The snare was almost not pulling through. It's just like that frequency is the only thing that you could hear basically, and then the rest, it was like a psh, psh, really like quiet snare. Like the synths are great, really, and if you want to keep focus on the synths, then by all means leave the percussions a little bit down. But this was a little bit too much down. Like this was like, if you find your mid range was like -10, your percussions was -20, and that is a little bit too low. Like I would keep it a -15, you know what I mean? Like just something like to do like, you know, so you still have a little bit of shimmer in the mix. And wait, chuck the percussions on a sampler and randomize them. Yeah, definitely it needed a little bit more, like, but the thing with this, Justin, is like, I mean, the percussion, like the what the percussions were doing is kind of okay, you know. You just want, if you have like so many synth line, like so many synths and like this squiggly squaggly, then it's kind of like, it's kind of okay to have the percussions like, you know, just like marking the rhythms, like touch, but they have to really have accents, you know, so you so they come through in the mix. If not, it's just going to be a big like if when you play it loud. What do you think, Joe? Like now that you're back, what's up?
Oh, yeah, the notes I had about the percussion was a few things. First of all, I agree with you. The snare could be a touch louder. It didn't really seem to be, you know, coming through as much as it could. Obviously, it's those frequencies you mentioned are an issue. First thing I would try, I mean, you know, just without saying creatively change the percussion. I mean, you could try some parallel compression. You could try bouncing. You know, a really simple way of doing that is to, parallel compression is where you kind of boost the body. You know, you basically send your group of percussion all grouped or bussed, and then you compress that heavily and you reintroduce that signal underneath. the percussion. So you have a really flat kind of waveform being introduced with no transients, and that boosts the body of everything. So it can, with a minimal percussion section like this, it could make it sound more full. It could also thicken it up and fill in some of the gaps. Just make those gaps less, so if you've got a few hi-hats, you've got a couple of loops that it'll thicken everything up, so it'll sound like there's less space between all the percussion hits. So that could work really well in this situation with having more of a stripped back percussion, I would say.
Definitely.
On to open hi-hat. This is an issue for me because I do feel like it needs to be leading the track a little bit more.
Totally.
It's quite, which is great for an element of the open hi-hat. But, what I'm doing at the moment is, if I need to get more bite, I'm trying to do as much as I can do with the open hi-hat sample itself, with processing and stuff. But in the case of needing a bit more bite, or sometimes you just want, you've got an open hi-hat, but sometimes you want just that first, like it's almost like a live hit on a hat. Some really, really, really well-produced tracks, they kind of just got this kind of short hi-hat, kind of like on the first bit of the open hi-hat sometimes. Anyway, so what I would suggest here is play around with adding a layer or two of extra hi-hats that play on the same rhythm as your open hi-hat, that blend into the open hi-hat, but are focused on, increasing the power in that transient of the beginning of the open hat, so you have more attack. But select it with samples. Don't use a transient shaper. Like actually go through and find a couple of hi-hat samples that work really nicely, that blend in to your existing open hi-hat, just as if they were part of it, but it will sound, it will go from sounding to sound like, I can't do it.
Yeah, no, it's difficult to do it with your mouth unless you're a beatboxer, right?
So that I would try that. Definitely try that. I think the open hat, it's such a element of like having. Everyone has different. I mean, it depends on the style, of course, but I think you can't go wrong with a powerful open hi-hat in a track, and also a powerful snare. And a lot of the time, I think it's worth almost mixing things around that. Like getting your open hi-hat and your snare really nice, powerful levels, and don't be shy to put them a little bit, louder than you think. Sometimes I was. I'm pretty surprised how loud I have them now. But anyway, as I said, it's stylistic, and for this kind of track, it suits it to be a little bit less, in your face, so to speak. But I still think there could be a crispness added, and trying some other layers on the hi-hat could be good. Snare again, possibly trying to layer it up, or I would say. What I did recently is I went on Splice and I flicked through about, let me get this right, it was about 600 pages of snares.
Jesus Christ.
And I've done this for hats, and I think, did I do it for open hats? I forget. Anyway, my aim is to do it with everything. So because then now all I do is I just open the sampler when a kick and bass is playing, and I just go through, my 10,000 snare. I bought every single one that I liked. Okay,
so 10,000 snares. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I've got all the decent snares from Splice in the folder, and I just scroll through the sampler, and I'm looking at, is it tuned? I like to have them, if possible, kind of in the similar tuning to the track, but just using a sampler to just preview them and just go through and see if I think having fresh ears and me listening to this track for the first time, I think you could go through and you could I'm speaking to the producer of the track. I think it would be a good idea to go through and maybe try some different snare drums using that sampler technique of just skipping through until you find something, because you'd be surprised, and you've done a track for ages and whatever, you start, it's hard to have fresh ears, but sometimes it's good. I definitely think the snare maybe could be, you could find something that even more, that works even better potentially. Anyway, the crash. What I think would be a great idea with the crash is to add another crash that is wider. I like these crashes. The crash was quite in the middle, and I think it's nice when a crash spreads out. Starts maybe in the middle, spreads out. And there's some nice crash samples that are a bit wider. Maybe one could be layered on there. Also, it fades out quite quickly, and I think it's quite nice sometimes to have that crash just go a little bit longer and fade out a little bit slower and smoother. So, potentially finding a nice white noise impact and layering that, subtly with the crash could extend that tail. I think that could be good. Could just make that moment last a bit longer. That's personal preference as well. But I think it also sounds professional, when if you're going to have the crash, then have it just like, in the middle and out to the sides a bit, and fading out at a nice length and a nice smoothness. I think that's just a professional thing to do in any kind of track. Again, maybe that's personal preference. Open hats. Yeah. Anyway, do you want to say something?
No, it's good. You're doing really good. You have any other notes?
Yeah. So the FM lead in the beginning, great, love it. One idea, I was going to say maybe it could have a touch more reverb, it's a bit drier. I'm guessing that was obviously it was a deliberate choice. Anyway, for me, I'd like to have it a little bit wetter. And one idea that I had for that, which I do as well, if things are sounding, if I've got an FM that's just repeating itself on the same tone quite a lot, then, you could split that over 2 channels and, have one channel with some different effects on. So one of them's dry, then the next time you hear it, it's got a bit of delay, or it's got a bit of flange, it's got a bit of reverb, and then alternating between the two. It just kind of gives it a bit more variation and just a bit more, that makes it a bit more interesting, I guess. So that was my idea for the FM in the first section, because as cool as it is, it sounded like it needed just the tonal variation a little bit more. And I think you can achieve that with effects, or if you don't want to go down that road, then you could maybe just do I was going to say, so kind of moving with the filter anyway, I was going to say maybe it could be automated a little bit more extremely on the alternating ones. But anyway, just however it's achieved, I think it would be nice to have that. Also, it's kind of psychedelic, isn't it? You hear it once, then you hear it again, and it's like, ooh, in a slightly different space.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the other one. It just gives that a little bit more interest. I think it will keep the listeners on their toes, and it's just spatially anyway, it's quite a nice thing to do. What have I got? Yeah, like the bass line change section. That was very fresh. It came in quickly after that. All the sounds came back. For a moment I was thinking maybe it would have been nice to let that build a little bit slower, so that you got the new bass line, and then maybe another 8 or 16 bars until it kicks off again, bringing in the sounds a little bit more slowly, because it's quite a lot to take in when you've got, the tune doesn't really stop very much, which is great because it's keeping the dance floor going. But, it's nice it would be nice maybe to give that bass line change section a little bit more room to breathe before all the sounds and the percussion come back. So that was my advice for that section. Maybe just give that a little bit longer and let those sounds build up a little bit more slowly before they all come back in. Let that bass line change have more of a moment. Like the FM grid in the second half, I thought that was very impressive. And again, that was what I was talking about with the different tonal elements of the grid providing nice level of excitement and interest. That was achieved really well in the last section of the track, second half of the track, after the bass line changed. All those FMs, they were all different effects. That was really, really cool. I liked that. And then the FM at the very end for me was a little bit too dry, and so if I was choosing, I would have a little bit more delay, a little bit more reverb. Maybe something in the middle, like the Oxford have this sort of, it's called like an echo. It's an echo, it's halfway between a delay and a reverb, and you can play with that. That could work well. The FM at the end was just a little bit dry for my liking, but again, maybe that's just a stylistic choice potentially. And that's all I've got for this one.
That's killer. Really good. Best feedback we've got so far, like probably like in all our episodes. So it's really good.
Great.
Yeah, no, really detailed stuff. The track was Octogoat. So
Octogoat.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Great name.
Great name and great track, man. Keep it pumping. It's good. It's getting there, man. It's really, really powerful stuff. Nice.
Yeah, man, definitely. I think if you get like this little details about, like, for example, dynamics, like the dynamics on the kick and bass, and like the little things like the levels on the percussions, and obviously like all the stylistic stuff that Joe is like mentioning, this is going to bring like the people into the track, like it's going to get them inside the vibe, rather than just listening to like sounds, and like it's just going to like put it like right on them. And this is what you want to when you're producing this music. It's just like to make it more immersive, right? Like instead of just it's difficult to say that it's objectively good, because it's all subjective with music, but there are some things that stylistically should be met, like this kind of stuff. Like the sounds should be moving more, like what he said about, like what Joe said about reverbs, and how the FM lead could like potentially like get a little bit more, like into a different space here and there, and then like just suddenly like like this is really, really cool and important. Immersion rather than impact. Yeah, exactly. That's the goal. Like because usually the impact is just like poof, quick changes. You can do you'd be making electro music if you want impact, but immersion, what you want is like the subtle kind of like changes, and the things that are like really like just like it's knitting itself kind of thing, rather than like, okay, I want this, I want that. And with the synths, it really, really feels like you have like a lot of good ideas there. Like it's a really intricate grid. But yeah, just like some of the how do you say, some of the technical, there are some technical issues that like you should address for sure. Okay, so we got more music here. You want to add something else, or missed out on this? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So we got.
No, that's fine. Still good.
Allah, man. So I didn't. I got. Okay, I'm gonna start with all these ones that I already have downloaded, and then we'll go to the ones that are streamed tracks, in case in case our stream just collapses again. Well, at least we'll have a chunky bit of music happening. So okay, we got one. This is from Adam Goodlett. Wait, I'll start again. The track's called Ascending Modulations, really cool name. And okay, Adam is here on the chat. So let's see, man.
Oh, yeah.
Boom. And cool. So we're back. Not in the middle part, but the track arrangement carries it forward, and this is the winner. Okay. Well, what do you think, Joe? What do you think about the track? What's happening? Whoop, we're losing you. You're back? Okay, you're back. What's up, man? You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. What do you think, man? You start this one.
Okay. Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but yeah, I think now you're getting back with us, to the world of the internet.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, just a little breaky, but it's
What? Why is that?
yeah. Now you're back. Now you're totally back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, first thing, nice intro.
Yeah,
enjoyed that. Enjoyed that. Very nice, you know. And one thing I'd like, yeah, overall on this track, you know, something to say in the beginning is, you know, the synth levels overall and the clarity of the synths was really good, I thought. You know, they were all, you know, really up there in the mid, quite prominent and, you know, powerful volume choices for all of them. So, you know, the first thing that was screaming. The main thing in this track at the moment is the percussion is way too quiet,
Yeah.
and so you can't. You almost can. I almost couldn't hear the snare.
Yeah.
So it's so that's going to have to be worked on. But that's why I made a point of saying about the synths, because are all at good levels. You know, that's kind of where you want your percussion. Your percussion is going to be your opener hi-hat is going to be coming in at the same decibels roughly as your main synthesizers. You know, that's how I'm doing it right now, and the snare as well. So, and you know, normally that's going to be anywhere from two to 4 decibels beneath your kick drum. You know, and so you know, so when when those hats and the hats and the snares and the loops, when they come up to that same level as the synthesizers, you're going to hear a very different tune. It's going to sound like a real full-on blasting kind of powerful tune because, like as I said, the synths are really nicely placed at those volumes. I don't know what you think about that. You agree about that?
Yeah, totally. I think at some points, like for example, in the breakdown, I thought like it could have had a bit more saturation, that synth, so it like because it starts really quiet and then just crawls up, and also like just to beef up a little bit the mid range without like pushing so much the high mids that it's like right now that like like that synth that was there, it was like total high mids and like not real like low mids, that it kind of needed a little bit of balancing there. But apart from that, yeah, like the synths are like pretty much in good level. And yeah, I also had the note about the snare saturation levels. Definitely you could saturate a little bit more your stuff without it distorting, you know, but it's just going to get everything in the front with the kick and the bass and stuff like that. Now, yeah, I'll let you carry on. What else do you have in mind?
I have that as well. Saturation. I mean, you know, as nice as the leads are, you know, you could really squeeze all of them, and you can juice them up a lot. You know, and you know how I would do that would be, you know, using a saturator, using a saturator. And, you know, you can put like an L2 at the end of the chain, for example. Put that to -12. Put that to -12, something like that, -13, -14, and then you know basically squeeze before that. You know, saturate. You know, saturate your synthesizer before that, and your output level is going to stay the same because it's going through the L2. but you'll see how much squeeze you can get and how much you can juice up your synths, because all this perceived loudness and everything like that, it's depending on the shape of your synthesizer audio feed, if it's got transients in the wrong places, you're going to have a lot of volume, peak volume, but you're not going to have a lot of RMS volume. So trimming the fat, or fattening up the fat, as it were, trimming the thin in this case, but getting those peaks under control, with a limiter, or potentially a saturator or both, and maximizing the volume so you get more bang for your buck on some of the synths will be really good, because they'll sound louder but they won't be louder, and that's something I'm working with a lot at the moment, is getting the most volume, getting the most perceived volume for the least amount of peak volume out of everything. Because if we can do that, then we'll be able to have our kick and bass louder as well. So everything will sound nice and loud and rich and full, and it will be coming in at a reasonable amount on the peak meter, not too much, and it will be nicely controlled. So I think some of that attention can be given to the synths. I think the choices of the synths and everything is good, especially the lead that happens a couple of times. I think it's in the intro, then it happens like twice again throughout the track. It's kind of this, it's almost a bit SH 101 vibe. You know the one I'm talking about, Trump?
Yeah, totally.
That one, really nice. Really like that. Yeah, when the percussion's up, it's the percussion, that open hi-hat is going to be the same volume as those synthesizers. That's what you're aiming for. You're going to have your open hi-hat the same volume as the synths, basically, and the snare's not going to be far off. So push the open hi-hat, play with that. Obviously, yeah, the crash, all the other percussion and stuff needs to come up as well. I think it sounds like it's a monitoring issue with where the track's been made, because I think it would have sounded probably, the percussion obviously I think would sound louder too when it was being made anyway. So kick bass, yeah, I mean, I'm on headphones, so I'm a bit hesitant to talk about kick bass frequencies. One thing I would say is when the bass came in, I thought it could have a little bit more clarity, and it's a really simple one to remember, but being careful of how much low your synthesizers have got in them. You need to pay attention to that, because in this case I think there's quite a lot overlapping. It sounds like there's some bits overlapping with the bass, and that's okay, but can't be too much, because we want obviously the synths to be nice and loud, but we want the bass to be clear as well, and we want the kick and the bass to not have any too much stuff in the same areas of pressure that the kick and the bass are. So the way I like to cut most of the synthesizers is I do like a hard cut on an EQ of the low frequencies up to say 100 usually as an average, but it depends on the if you want to get technical, just open the frequency chart and see what key you're in, and then judge it by which harmonics you want to keep and which harmonics you're happy to let go. But what I would say, if we're going to go down that mode of thinking, is take off whatever harmonics you've got up to about 100, take off the first would be the first couple, and then basically do a low shelf from 100, and on some of those low mid that cross over with the bass. And the reason for that is that, yeah, sure, you could cut them, but then sometimes when you do that, your sound is going to sound a bit thin. Now, of course, when you cut, you're going to need to take something off the high as well. So I always do a high shelf, taking the volume down from 10k upwards on the synth, and it just leaves that that air space for the hi-hats, and it really, you don't need that sizzle on most synths. I didn't hear a lot of sizzle here, but I mean, for sure, probably was there. And that sizzle can just, you don't need it. Sometimes you can even do a high cut just at the top. But yeah, but the reason I do the low shelf is because I don't want the sound to sound thin. I do want to reduce those low mid frequencies in the synthesizers. It's super important, because otherwise it's going to get muddy with your bass. It's going to make your bass less easy to hear. But using a shelf, you're going to keep it natural, so those frequencies will still be present in the sound, but you're going to be reducing them with a shelf. You're not cutting them away, which can be quite unnatural, and in some cases it can leave the sound sounding a bit plasticky, but sometimes it can work great. So it really does depend on the sound. More saturation. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, the saturation. Definitely go to town. I mean, I just started using the Oxford plugins, and I tell you, the saturator in there, incredible. But we'll get to those plugins afterwards. Anyway, do you want?
Sorry, I was just opening the door for my dog. She's she wants to go out. So yeah, totally saturation. Go to town with saturation, because unless you are like physically hearing the distortion out of the saturator, like you can still you can pump it, especially if it's like clean saturation, like you can pump it, and it will just, it's like with limiter, just like Joe says, trim all the peaks, and then all the fatness of the synth will come through, as long as you have the dynamics that you actually want. Like if you want a very dynamic sound, obviously don't saturate it so much, or be more aggressive. Like for example, if you're reaching the dynamic with the filter, like then you put the filter after the saturator, you know what I mean? So it's like it's really nice and rich, and then you just filter in and out, and that will give it like that dynamic you want without losing so much that pressure. But another thing that I had, and this is more of a stylistically speaking, like you have your first breakdown and you have that bleed that comes in, that I told you to saturate more. Then it goes away, and then before the second break, it comes back in. It's like the same lead, the same melody, everything, So that's second part of the lead. You could actually potentially do it with another instrument, So it's like it's the same theme of the track, it's that same main theme, but it's coming in with another synth, with another sound that like, well, maybe something lighter, maybe something a little bit more bubbly, I don't know, like whatever you want, like maybe something lower, like that is just like adding to the bass line. Like there are different ways to I would like to say to skin something, but definitely not for the vegans. So but yeah, like I think this could really work, like I do that a lot, like, so you have like a really good melody, like a good pattern, and you just like swap it around and here and there with like something more FM, something less FM, a little bit, like something a little bit more floaty, a little bit not so, like, because that synth is on your face, it's like it's your main lead. I think Joe has frozen. I can see him posting stuff on the. Okay, cool. What's up, Joe? You're in the chat. Okay, so wait, and actually,
I'm here.
Okay, yeah, no, but I can't see you moving. Well, let me see if you are.
Black. It's gone black on my Discord window on my phone.
Yeah.
Can you hear me still?
I can hear you. Yeah, but we can't see you. Well, at least you don't have a silly face on, but. but actually,
it's strange. I'm looking at it's just black. The place where I can see myself is just black. Should I just let that go back to normal, or?
Yeah, try to go. Just turn off the camera and turn it back on Discord app, and you'll probably be back.
Okay.
There you go. And so if you, there you go. You're there. So actually, if you stay black, BLM, dude. So what I was gonna say is, in your electro bassline part, like that electro bass is a little bit too loud, like, because it like after that big bass line, like, well, basically the kick is either like, well, the kick and bass for me it's okay, you know. The levels are okay. You can see the dynamic on the analyzer was like, actually, like the RMS was fine, so I wouldn't really move too much those levels. But when it comes to that like big electro, dubsteppy kind of bass line, so like bit overpowering in comparison, exactly. So I would try to look into that. And yeah, I think definitely the snare level was way too quiet. I think the offbeat was more or less okay in high frequencies, but you probably dipped down too much on like low mid, like on high mids on that high offbeat hi hat. It's like that. It was only air on that hi hat.
Yeah, I mean, again, to Adam, what I would say is, open up a sampler like battery and just flick through hi-hats and snares and just save a new version of the track for a second and then just get rid of your percussion and just start again and just try some different hats and stuff. Just not because you're going to replace everything, or mute them, and just do it, because at the end of a tune it's always good to review this kind of stuff. I just finished a tune, or so I thought, and then played it. Then I went to take it for mastering. I was fortunate enough to be physically going to see my mastering engineer on the way to a gig. So I spent the evening with him mastering the track on the hardware and stuff. It was really good fun. But my percussion was all too quiet, and I could have sworn down that it was correct and it was really sounding great. And we got into his studio on his barefoot monitors, and it was just really quiet. And I came back. Then I played the track in the party. It was kind of so-so. So then I came back and, had to just look at it again. And I was like, okay, right, new kick, new bass, new hi-hat, new snare, new loops, new crash. Get it done. Still the same track, but I, did a whole facelift on it. And,
Get it
I'll
done.
play it again in a week, and it better. Hopefully, it will sound better. Because sometimes it's good to just review this shit. Just because you finish the tune, it's almost more. The longer you spend on a tune, is almost going to mean the more coloured you're hearing it. And I don't mean that in the South African sense of the word. I mean that in the more you're going to be biased and you're not hearing it straight. You need to take a moment and then with fresh ears go back there and get those percussion, get that percussion happening again, and try some different samples and take the volume of your main lead, see what that is on the peak meter, and put your hi-hat the same volume. Just start around there. It's going to be a lot louder than you think. But as I said, in a tune like this, your main hi-hat is, it's one of the leading things of the track. And from recent experience, my hi-hats are coming in at around the same level as my synths. That's what's happening for me right now. So try that. Anyway, that's what I can say. And I like the Irish kind of end lead melody, really cool. And again, could be a lot more crispy, a lot more saturated. Perhaps you could try that trick with putting the L2 at the end of the chain and then squeezing into that with a saturator, seeing how much power you can get, how much more you can boost that, how loud that synth sounds for the same peak, for the same peak. Because it's all about that, right? It's all about how much juice can we get out of every sound.
Yeah, man.
For the least amount of peak volume. That's the game in one sense. We want everything to sound loud, and we don't want it to actually be loud on the peak meters, but we want to get it as loud as possible for as little peak as possible. Anyway, so That's what I've got for this.
That's good.
That's what I've got. Yeah, yeah, but really nice track again. Well done on that, Alan. Very musical, and really, I think it's great. I'd be keen to hear it when you've got that percussion up there. And fortunately for you, your synths are all sitting at quite a nice volume, and they're quite balanced with each other. They're all immersing me in the world of the track in the right way. You just bring your percussion up to match the synths, and it's going to be you're going to be listening to a completely different level of power in the track. So anyway, do that, and yeah, all the best with it. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, man, definitely. Okay, let's go for the next one now. But before that, I hear you were saying you've been using some new plugins, right? Like the SSLs. You recommend them?
Yeah. Friend of mine, Patrick, came to the studio a few days ago, and he was telling me, "Oh, man, SSL have just released this delay plugin that I really think you're going to like." And so we went on the SSL website, and somehow we ended up getting the subscription of all of the plugins before we tried the delay. Don't ask me, but we did. But we did it twice because it didn't work when he did it. So then I did it. So we both got this month SSL, all the plugins, and we opened the delay, and I wasn't very impressed with the delay, but the saturator, the compressor, there's a one to make sounds more wide. Forget the name, SSL wide something, and yeah, they're really, really, really nice for 20 quid a month. I'm not an SSL rep, but seeing if they were to give me something free, that would be fantastic. But they don't sound like software.
No.
They sound like as close to hardware as I've ever heard any software thing sounding. And funny enough, they just released this piece of hardware called the Fusion, which is it's a rack-mounted box with different coloring tools inside, such as overdrive, EQ, and such things. And I thought that looked really fun. And my mastering engineer actually bought one, and I was able to have a little go on it last week. But this, in the SSL VST collection, they've got all of the different components from that Fusion hardware unit separated and in there. So I'm telling you, I only got this like 4 or 5 days ago, and those plugins, I mean, they do take a bit of processor. But they're so good. You want them on everything. I've got them on hi-hat, snares, just all the synths. Oh, they're really, really. That would be that would be my advice for the plugins of the month.
Yeah.
The sound quality of those SSL, fuck me, they're good. Really good.
Yeah. No, the SSL is always really good. That was the first compressor that I built here. Is one of those SSL 4000. And yeah, really, really good. It makes a big difference. Now I have to take it back to, I have to fix it. Take it back to the bench because it's doing something funny. But it's been 10 years, man. It's like...
Wait, what, the Tron presser was an SSL?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an SSL. It's like the old SSL, like the G4000. Like it's from the old console.
So it's kind of like a kit. It was kind of like a kit car in a way.
Well, I didn't do a kit. Like I bought everything separately, but what they already sold was the PCBs from like. There was like one PCB that is like the main PCB, and then the other one that like the circuit board. But I bought all the components separately by just picked the good ones myself, and then there it has like loads of modifications. It has like quad VCAs. It has like proper how do you say, like a proper bypass. It has dual sidechain. And another sidechain filter, like the API filters, like the thrust kind of thing. Plus it has like input and yeah, the sidechain filter thrust and the sidechain input. So it's yeah, it has a lot of like little features that like make it way more versatile. Okay, didn't realize this is streamed today in the case. I was busy preparing my Spain vacation. Oh man, Spain vacation sounds really good. Maybe you can meet Joe. Okay, so wait, let's go to the next track really quickly because there's not much time left. This is Mako. Name of the track is "Open My Mouth." More like open your.
Hang on, the track's called "Open My Mouth."
I would call it "Open Your Mouth."
The track's called "Open My Mouth."
Yeah.
Shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth.
The track is called. The track's called "Open Your Mouth."
I would call it "Open Your Mouth," but it's called "Open My Mouth." But yeah,
it's called "Open My Mouth."
Okay, that's what she said. That's better. Intro and outro not finished. Everything is work in progress. My masters went through that when I... Okay, cool. Okay, so let's play this one.
Or we could turn it through like, oh, I'm fucked. like, open your mouth, dude. I want to even up the sheet. Now, this makes no sense, but I open my mouth and I watch as his hand moves forward and puts some amount of acid onto my tongue. I'll never know how much acid he put on my tongue. I knew that I was fucked. I knew like, oh, I'm fucked. Within an hour, I'm having the best trip of my life.
Bam. Cool. We're back. Cool, man. Really nice. What do you think, Joe? What's your thoughts on the matter? Whoop. Maybe Joe's...
Quite delay. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Great track, by the way. Great track. Really enjoyed that too. Yeah, some great sound design in here and really great grid work throughout the track, you know. Talking about, you know, having all the grid stuff being, you know, different textures and it being that immersive experience that kind of tickles all around. I think that was achieved really well here. Really well. So, sound design in the intro is really nice. Intro, kick and bass filter needs to be louder. Small detail, but the devil's in the details, especially in psytrance. Fuck me. Yeah, percussion filter would need to come up in volume with that. Okay, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Snare was a good volume in this case.
Yeah.
Quite up there. You know, present. Open hat could be a bit louder, and again, there could be a bit more power at the beginning transient. So, you know, I would urge to have a look at, you know, layering some small hi-hats on with the front of the open hat just to make it have that bit more powerful attack. Just needs to just cut through a little bit more. So open hat can come up. Closed hat, the 16s closed hat can be a bit louder as well. That's gonna help carry the momentum of the track a little bit more.
Totally.
if there are any loops, I'm not hearing them loud enough. I don't think there are any loops in the sense of what I'm talking about. A little loop could be nice in there just to fill in some of those kind of high mid frequencies in the percussion and give it like the nice thing about loops are they kind of humanize the groove a little bit, because they're not always exactly in time and whatnot. Anyway, I would say top loop or a high mid loop, something like that would be a nice thing to complement this percussion. The crash was a really, really nice example of a decent crash, like what I was talking about earlier. I think it was with track 1. I was saying, for me, I'd like a crash to be a little bit more all-encompassing. And
Splashy.
In this track, I thought the crash was really good, I thought.
Yeah.
Crash is really good. Section 1, synthesizers. They're all nicely there, and they're all working well together. Now, maybe this has already been done, but I don't think it has. But if it has, then apologies. But I think you could take all of those synthesizers, and you could, put them. I set up a bus or effects channel reverb, and I just send a little bit of all of my synths to one reverb, so they all sound like they're in the same space. Been doing that with the SSL reverb for the last few days.
Nice.
But all those synths having a little bit of the same reverb. I think that could even be extended to percussion as well, because eventually you want the track to sound like it's being all being made all in the same space, right? So a group reverb that you send each of those synths to, I think would just give it that kind of just a little bit of space around it all. It would situate them all together in the space nicely.
Let me add something to this reverb idea, because also what this I learned from a friend from Rulas from Ecliptic, and what he does is he sets up 2 or 3 different reverbs, short reverbs, just like room verbs, but with a little bit different pre-delay. So because, for example, when you're inside a room and you're hearing, even if all the sounds are inside the same room, you can have a sound in that corner, and then a sound very close to you, and then a sound behind you. And even though they're all in the same room, and the room decay should be more or less the same, but a little bit of pre-delay here and there, to differentiate this sound to be on the left, this sound to be on the right, which is not panning per se, but it really gives you the feel of natural room sounding, and that is also very, very useful too. If you don't want to do just one reverb, then just select some sounds, but usually all the sounds should have a little bit of short reverb, like room verb. Yeah, carry on, man. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, you're absolutely right. I was watching a little it was a kind of studio tour of Dr. Dre's engineer, a guy, mixing engineer, and who worked on a lot of this very famous hip hop stuff in the noughties. And he was saying exactly the same as what you've just said. Traditionally on the mixing desk, on each channel they'll have set up auxiliary where they've got a long reverb and a short reverb. Yeah. And he didn't mention about different pre-delay times, but that's I think that could. Would you agree you could do that with maybe two instances of the same reverb?
Totally.
And just one long, one shorter, just two different auxiliary channels, but just one longer, one shorter, with slightly different pre-delays. Yeah. They sound like they're in the same room, but slightly.
Yeah, totally. Oh, you're breaking up a little bit, but yeah, I would definitely do that. And I do that actually a lot.
Positioned differently. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, no, fantastic.
I do that.
What else was I going to say? Moving bass lines.
You go. It's just a little bit delayed, so I don't want to. There you go. Yeah, you're back. So you're saying something about bass lines?
No, I just said I like the moving bass line section. Sorry, what were you going to say there, Tron? We got cut.
Yeah, it's just like because I think that was your internet that is like island internet. But yeah, it's
I mean,
about.
it's supposed to be fiber optic.
I know, yeah, no, but it's a little bit if like maybe it's my internet anyways. I'm in the third world, but well, sorry, developing.
It could be.
So
Okay, so filter. Okay, the filter break with the vocal sample. You got a filtered kick and bass. Then you got the vocal sample leading into the end section of the tune. I think the vocal could be a little bit more crispy, potentially saturated, and just a little bit more in your face. I think it needs to come up in volume and in density, and just be a bit more powerful. So just a little bit. Again, small detail. I think the volume, you can get a lot more out of that vocal. You can squeeze a bit more out of that, or failing that, just turn it up. Well, a creative idea has kind of been done a million times, but the word life comes at the end of that. And it would have sounded quite, I know it's kind of cheesy in a way, but to have the word life be delayed kind of over as the kick and the bass comes back, it would have finished it off nicely in a kind of traditional sense. But that was what I had for that was what my notes. Yeah,
I'll add up
really enjoyed the track.
I'll add up a little bit on that life, yeah. Like, so for example, what I do when I try to delay this kind of stuff, so it's doesn't become so cheesy, or maybe now it's a little bit corny as well, but like you just put it on, like you put that word like with the rhythm you want in its separate audio channel, so it's not quite delayed, so you're making the delay with audio pieces, and then that like one or two different audio channels if you want, like, or as many as you want, and then I granulize it, like I use grains like Portal, or like Yuhi, UH like that one. I can't even pronounce it, but that one, the G, that is like a granulizer, or like stuff that just makes this stuff like just and like just stretch it and like bring it back in, and then at some point like one is gonna get blurred, and then go into the next one, like, so this kind of stuff, it makes those delays like much more humanized and much less of like the just life, no, it's life, blah 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 blah, life, like, and it just comes back to that shit. Yeah,
very cool. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because normal delay can be a bit passe. I mean, but yeah, you're right. That's a great idea. And controlling, it's one thing I've done. Just been doing a bit recently. Just having like channels with delays on. Getting one of the synths and bouncing a whole wet thing that just goes on for ages, and just pure delay, and then just having that on its own audio channel, then filtering that, and having that just kind of coming in and out in the background as the synths are playing,
Totally.
Just playing with that, stick a flanger on it, you can pan it, you can fade it in and out with the volume, fade it in and out with the filter is what I'm doing a lot at the moment. And it just kind of, it's just like 1 minute it's there, 1 minute it's not. And it just, just creatively working with, delays that are just straight up audio bounced, it's just like another synth, but it's the delay of one of your synths.
Yeah, no,
really
totally.
Good to get into that. I think then you've got full control.
Yeah, no, I do it a lot as well. Like, and I used to do it way more before that. Like, now I do it with Sense, especially, and then, but there is a reason why we have unlimited channels on our DAWs, is because like we can do this stuff and even more. Like, so just like be creative with like how you use your effects and how you introduce the sounds, because it's just textures, in the end of the day, in this kind of music, it's just a texture that you want to modulate and like to bring in and out like in certain ways. So like it's not always about synthesis. Sometimes it's a lot about like the effects and how you're treating and how you're filtering your stuff. Sometimes it's like much more than just one channel that makes that big synth sound bigger, And okay, let's go to the next track. This one is Sulikos, the guy that he named this podcast. The name it has is because of him. So let's just do this one. It's called Falafel in the Hand.
Picking up shit from the cosmos. It just ain't.
Sounds like innuendo, but
Falafel in the what?
Falafel in hand. Have you actually, this is a side note, but have you seen that movie? It's called He Died with a Falafel in His Hand. It's hilarious. It's a good movie. It's this.
I haven't.
Australian movie. It's funny.
I thought it was maybe using the Israeli psytrance term falafel in hand, comma, I ran to the dance floor and danced my arse off to Infected Mushroom or whatever.
Falafel in hand, like
maybe it's not
running. Like I was on the food stall, like ordering a falafel, and I just ran. It's just so good. Yeah, I think that's probably better. Okay, let's play this stuff.
It's picking up shit from the cosmos. It just ain't fucking there. I've got my own shit to worry about. I've lived in 49 shared households in what seems as many years. I've been ripped off, raided, threatened, burnt out, shot at, beaten on, stabbed in every one of those years. My beds are foam slabs on the floor. My cupboards are stacks of stolen milk crates. I've lived with tent-dwelling bank clerks, albino moon tanners, psycho fucking drama queens, mushroom farmers, acid eaters, nitrous suckers.
Cool. So, well, yeah, that faded out a little bit, so it needs an outro. Your sound got better, so where are my melodies? What? This wasn't Mako, this is Sulikos. But, what do you think, man? Why are you gonna say something? Joe?
Yeah, no, it was. Every time you stop the music, when you start talking again, your voice goes into this psychedelic delayed vortex of like robotically engineered kind of madness.
Oh, nice.
And then eventually it goes, and then it goes normal. So I've just come out of that and it's now normal. I've just got to take a piss. So you start. I'm just going to go to the toilet.
Okay.
I'll be back in just 1 minute.
Go for it. Cool, man. So, well, basically, Michael, this, like the kick and bass are way too bassy, I think. It kind of needs a little bit more beef on the mid-range, on the kick especially, like, but also like when you push the kick there, that you're gonna have to push the transient of the bass line. And that will make you push your synths and your high frequencies, like all your percussions and all that stuff. So in general, I think, just the bass and the kick are just like basically too low frequency. And I think, the beginning of the track, it didn't catch me until when I told you, oh, that synth is really nice. When it's like it's just like a few synths that are like kind of complementing each other and making this like like that is really good. And from there, kind of the track really picks up. But yeah, I think you need to balance a little bit louder all your mid-range. Like, don't be scared to push a little bit more that mid-range, and yeah, like basically, I think the dynamics are correct with the kick and bass, but in some way, in some sense, the bass is a little bit too bassy, even for even if the dynamics are correct. Like maybe you need to clean out a little bit that it goes from the fundamental first and second harmonic. There is something to do there, like just minor adjustments. Sometimes it's like you cut a little bit more the fundamental, and then you leave the first harmonic, like actually pushing the air from the subwoofers, and then the second harmonic you push it down a little bit, just to give clarity to the tonality of the track. Because like fundamental and first harmonic are tonal, like they are the actual note of the track. And then the second harmonic, it's I think it's a fifth, and then the third harmonic is again, it's tonal. So usually you want like your fundamental and first harmonic kind of to be on the same level, and then the second and third harmonic kind of to be on the same level. So the second harmonic is going to go down a little bit, so you don't push that fifth, and you're like actually making your bass line more tonal. It depends really on the key, but usually is that case. Like usually I find myself like just turning down maybe 1 dB on that second harmonic to make that tonality more clean. What do you think, Joe?
Well, really cool vocal sample in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was going to say, just for variation, I mean, that vocal's got it's got a lot of great different phrases in it. You could almost have a few different channels with slightly different spatial effects or reverb or delay, or, and you could have just have it playing, but different parts on different channels, just for that slightly more psychedelic variation.
Do you think that sample was a little bit too much low cut? Like the low cut was a little bit too high up. Like it could have a little bit more beef, like more mid-range beef.
Yeah, especially seeing as it's in the intro. I mean, you haven't got to worry about low frequencies as much. So, I think get as much as you can out of the vocal when it's not playing over a kick in the bass.
Yeah.
Okay, so percussion, open hi-hat could definitely be louder, and it could again have a little bit more power, a little bit more pressure on the attack. Could potentially look at bringing in some extra hi-hats that go on the attack of the open hat, just to open it up and give it a little bit more presence there. Open hat up, snare up, and snare needs to come up a little bit more than the open hi-hat. You can hear it's playing quite a nice groove. It's got a skippy rhythm it's playing, but it's hard to hear it from where I'm sitting. It is, but it sounds nice, and it would be nice to hear that snare groove, that skippy snare groove, louder. It'll give the track a nice feel. Nice way the 16's hi-hat faded in. It's a different kind of hi-hat, this one, and it's interesting. It's an interesting, different kind of sounding hi-hat. I personally feel like you're going to want to layer up another 16's hi-hat, maybe more traditional hi-hat sounding hi-hat there that will play along with it as well, so that it will give the proper momentum and the proper lift and the way it works with your open hats. So definitely think there's room for one more 16's hi-hat going in there, because the one that you've got it's there, but it's not, sometimes it plays a little bit quieter, and you just need one a little bit more straight in there to go with it, I would say. And I think this percussion section would benefit from either one high mid loop or a top loop of some description, but just something to humanize the thing and give it a bit of the groove. Just a little loop background, doesn't need to be much. Just tie those hi-hats together. The main synth I thought was really nice in the first kick in the bass. First time the kick in the bass stops and then starts again. There's a synth, very elasticy synth. I thought that was done really nicely. Yeah. Really nicely. In general, I would say the synths in this track need a touch more reverb, if they've got any at all. They need to just be a little bit more reverb. They're a touch dry. And what we said about the last track, we were talking about setting up different auxiliary sends for reverbs that you can send everything to, so it makes it sound like it's in the same space. You benefit from that with this. Your synths need that. And while you're at it, the percussion can have a bit too. Now, as a general thing to note about the volumes and everything, when I got to the end of the track, I was confirmed in my mind that in general, all of the synths in this track are a little bit too loud in comparison to kick and the bass. All right, so they're a little bit too loud, and that's the kick and the bass is sitting a little bit too much at the back. In my opinion, you want that to be driving a little bit more the track. So those synths can come down a little bit in volume. It's nice that don't get me wrong, I mean, it's nice to hear them. So I'm saying they can come. You don't want them to be background at all. I like them loud and proud. But in this case, they're just a little bit, all of them in general, they're just a little bit too. So what you could do is you could just turn the kick and the bass up, would be my suggestion. Or take all of those synths and turn them down the same amount. As a general rule of thumb or a starting point for your synth levels, I'd say, your main synth levels, you can put them roughly to the same peak level as your bass.
Yeah.
Start totally. There. Start there. But I'm saying that when all the fat's been trimmed, so you've done your low cut, you've done maybe a low shelf a little bit, you've trimmed some of the sizzle, you've saturated, you've colored, maybe you've used some SSL to give it some color. You might have compressed it a bit. You might then have to low cut again a little bit, after all that's been added. When you will, if you add a saturator, that's for damn sure. Yeah. And then, as I said, you could put something like a limiter at the end, just to control. Just to control that final peak. You don't want to flatten it too much. But anyway, what I'm saying is when all of that's been done and when the synth has been properly processed, in that moment, after all of that's been done, the peak volume of that could be around the same as the bass, and you will have maximized it. I'm not saying that the synth should be the same as the bass when you haven't processed it, because then it's going to have spikes, and there's almost no point looking at your peak meter because it's not going to be representative of the sound, because you're going to have a lot of high bits and a lot of, it's going to be too many peaks and troughs in the sound. And once you've processed it like that, it's going to be a tighter signal, and then we can start talking about putting that to the same volume as your peak volume as your bass, and then as taking it from there and playing within a few decibels from that. So anyway, that's my advice for that track. That's all I've got.
That's really good. I think because you're on the headphones, so you, like you said, you can't really notice because the kick and bass here, it's like a bit overpowering, but that's because because it's only low end, you know what I mean? It was just super low end, and what you can hear is it's a big low end, and then the kick kind of fades out, and like the mid range of the kick is really quiet, and I think he should push the mid range of the kick and the bass so it, like you say, it covers the synths, and then it's going to be a bit more balanced, because I think right now the low end is super overpowering, and that's what I was saying before when you went to the loo. That's why I wanted to make a consensus about all this, because we're kind of saying different things, but that's because the reference is not quite the same. So here I get
listening on Yeah, I'm on the headphones, exactly. So it's a different. I'm hearing more low mid.
Exactly.
Upwards, I would get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that from there, yeah, you're totally right. The kick is really quiet from there onwards. It's absolutely what I'm saying is you need more pressure on the you need more pressure on the mid range on the kick, and that's going to drive your bass a little bit higher, and that's going to cover your synths. And yeah, your percussions, you said it, yeah, you can push them a little bit louder to have more of that detail, that it's really nice skippy snare loop and all that stuff. Yeah, definitely. So I think we were talking about the same thing, but just we're taking it from different perspectives. But I hope you guys was informative. Maybe we can go one more track, because this was a little bit strange beginning on this. It was just too much technical problems on my end. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So we got this last track is my friend good old Existo music, Liquid Vibe, and the track is called The Core. And let's
The Core.
The Core. So let's
The Core. As in The Core.
The Core. Yeah.
I like it.
The Core. Okay.
The Core, yeah.
Yeah.
The Core.
It's better with
The
it's better with the Z, The Core. Okay, let's do it.
It's yeah, they're great. Love it.
Wow, okay, that was a little bit sudden. I didn't notice it was going to finish so quick. Yeah, that was just like, bye bye. That wasn't me. That was the track. That was the track, I promise.
Well, the outro needs a bit of work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really. Bachita, ¿vas a venir o no? No. Okay, so yeah, I was giving some advice in the chat. I don't know if you saw it, but I'll let you start. What do you think?
I didn't see it because I was making notes. Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Well, for a third track, I'd say, well done. It's definitely going in the right direction. Kick and bass sounded pretty big when it came in.
Yeah.
I would say it's going in the right direction. Not a disaster at all. Definitely in the right direction. Now, something to bear in mind. I think your kick could have been. Tron, you can maybe say better than me because you're looking at the analyzer. But to me, it sounded like again the kick could just be dominating in volume a little bit more. So I would just bear in mind a general principle that I use is I get a on the master channel. I'll put one of the waves metering plugins so I can see the RMS levels, and I have the kick 2 decibels louder than the bass, and we're talking RMS. So if in doubt, start with that and see.
Yeah.
I found that's quite a nice. You definitely know about your kick drum when you have it 2 RMS decibels higher than the bass. There will be no mistaking the fact that kick drum means business. So I would suggest starting there. Because everything is mixed around your kick, right? The kick drum is the loudest in the tune. Nothing is louder than your kick drum, period. And often there'll be a lot of effort put into sculpting all the sounds in very subtle ways so they are not interfering with each tap of the kick drum, whether it's subtly putting an LFO tool on, pumping things down on the kick, taking audio files and doing a little fade in, lots of different ways, side chaining stuff to the kick. I mean, you might not think you hear it, but a lot of really, really high quality production side trance tunes. There's a lot of effort that goes into preserving that kick drum moment and making sure that things don't mess with that too much. It just keeps that kick drum pumping through the mix. Anyway, went a bit off topic there. Snare could be a little bit louder, I would say, decibel or 2. Open a hi-hat, the same. 16's hat, that needs to be much louder. That was almost, I almost couldn't hear that. So bring the 16's hat up. And again, like I said with the last track, a loop would be nice. I don't know if you've got one there, but I couldn't really hear it if it was. So I'd say a top loop or a mid loop would be nice. It would complement everything. The synths in section 1, as a general principle, need to be a bit louder. They're a little bit quiet. A little bit in the background. They need to be louder. As I said before, you can take the synths and you can put them to the same peak volume as your bass, and use that as a starting point. Gated vocal synth in the middle section with the funky bass line. It's nice. I like that. It reminds me of the old hard house days. Like those little vocal bits. I love that shit. That needs to be louder because it's not loud enough. Now it's also quite, it's nice that it's mono, but it's quite it seems to be quite contained right in the middle. And it feels like it wants to be opened up a little bit in the stereo field. So, you could try a width plugin, or you could, just try moving it around, or you could try maybe adding an oscillator with a couple of extra voices.
Exactly.
To give it some width. You could even try a little bit of auto pad. It's quite an extreme to try on a main sort of line like that. But anyway, I just think it's all in the middle, and it could be dancing around. It's quite a playful vocally synth line. Yeah. It could bounce around in terms of the stereo position. Anyway, break. Okay, the break was too empty in terms of rhythm for me. So it's like, because there was no kick bass filter, no percussion filter, there was just sounds, right? So it felt to me like if you're gonna be kind of like moving in the right direction in the break, you need to have something like maybe the percussion or maybe the kick and bass on a filter at some point, just so we know where we're going. So it's not so sudden when the kick and bass comes in, if you want that effect. Because if you don't want that effect, then fine. But it's nice, even in a break, if people kind of, their bodies can move in the right direction or dance in the right direction a bit. We don't want everyone to know exactly what's coming next, but we certainly don't want them stopped in time. And this was a little bit like that. So I think your break would benefit from, a little kick and bass on a high pass or a low pass filter or both, and a little bit of filtered percussion. Lead, just even if it's just quiet, just there. That could be cool. And then the synth at the end again was very mono, and I thought it could come out. Maybe with another oscillator added, but like I said, with a couple of extra voices, so that it just widens up. Yeah, sounded very sort of like very middle, one voice. Sounds like it's one voice right in the middle, and it would benefit from being a little bit wider.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle, mate. So add an oscillator that's got it's more than one voice, and detune it just slightly, and then you can have it'll start to get wider, and it'll be a bit more of a kind of just be a bit of a bigger sound. So that's me. That's what I've got.
Yeah, really, really good as usual. And the abrupt ending, like for sure, you should work on that. But I think
the DJs won't like.
No one will. The DJ, not very DJ friendly, the track, but. I think definitely I'm with you about the break. It's very empty, and it just it just really like completely stops you in your tracks. And for third track is really, really good. Like, congratulations on that. I think like what I said on the chat, so like the bass is a bit too loud, so the kick doesn't have that protagonism that it should have. But that you can sort it out a little bit with like taking a little bit more of your fundamental on the bass line, or like just bringing down the levels. Joe says 2 decibels more on the kick than on the bass on RMS, and I agree with that, 2 as a minimum. And then you can go from that to like -3 on the bass, like minus even 5 decibels on the bass if you want sometimes. Like, it depends really on how much impact and punch you want on your track. But usually when you have too much bass, it feels like there is no bass. You know what I mean? Because there is like real no impact. There is no like doof, doof, doof. It's just gonna be like doof, doof. And that doesn't really help anything. And because that bass is so loud, your mid-range you don't hear it like pushing through. And actually it is quiet. It is very quiet. So like more saturation, like we said on the first and second tracks, definitely more saturation on your synths could help. And when you start leveling this stuff, like what I usually do, and I haven't seen many people saying this, but I've said it many times before. It's like I compress my kick drum, yeah, and I compress it when it's this bassy. I compress my kick drum, and I compress it with a slow attack and more or less fast release. Not as fast as so it thumps. Like you don't want it to thump when it's like pulling back the compression, but what you want is like a slow attack, so it only takes the low end of it, like just the low end of the kick, and it leaves all the mid range, and sometimes even a little bit of the thump of like the low mid thump, and then you're just really compressing the low end and pushing the rest of the kick up, and that can help with translation, with like how that kick, like that spectral balance, that's going to carry you around the track, that's going to carry your mix. So if you balance a little bit more like into the mid-range your kick, then your bass is going to be more balanced into the mid-range, and then all your synths are going to be pushed a little bit up, and then that's going to be much easier to judge when your synths are too loud or too quiet, because they are already on the level, on the verge of being too loud. And that's where they need to be, more or less, you know what I mean? Everything needs to be in the front, like when it's supposed to be on the front. Everything should be like pretty leveled. And a good solution for this kind of stuff is like a bit more compression and more saturation, for sure. And that's going to definitely push your high frequencies more, which is obviously what Joe was saying, is you need more high frequencies there also. And yeah, I think that's it, man. Like we there is a couple, like I don't dare to try to download more music right now because it's going to like again crash the stream. But I want to thank you, man, for coming and join us in such short notice. You legend, you absolute legend.
Yeah, and yeah, this was great. This was really good fun. Thanks, guys, for sending the music in. And yeah, it's great. It's really nice to give some feedback. And it's just nice to hear people, out there just, making it happen, making tunes and, looking to improve. And, we're all looking to improve, and we're all on that journey together. And, sharing is caring. And it's been really nice to, share a few of my thoughts, and, hope it was useful to everyone. Hope you got something good out of it.
Man, even I learned a lot right now, You're really, really good at giving feedback. I'm going to send you my music, you motherfucker.
Dude, please, that would be fantastic.
No, really good
feedback. Great, thanks. I'm glad people, it looks like people had fun. That's cool, man. Really, really nice. And it's like we're all one big team trying to make good music. I love to help people because, I want there to be more better tunes, more good tunes in the workplace, because I am a DJ as well.
Yeah.
And more good music in the world is a good thing for everyone, especially DJs. So, it's in everyone's best interest to help people to make the music they want to make to the best standard they can. So, in aid of that, fantastic. Really nice to come on the show.
No, thanks, man. Really, thanks a lot. And thanks, everyone, for sending us the tracks. Just one last question was, Dario was asking you if you mentioned you were going to put out another new mix soon. Are you bringing a new mix out soon? I think you mentioned a single, right?
Mix. I mean, DJ mix. I haven't got one lined up, but I'm always saying I'm going to start making a DJ mix series. So I should probably just do that and stop talking about it. I'm bringing out a single. I'm working on my new album at the moment, and we're going to be releasing 2 singles from that. One of them at the end of March, although maybe that will be April now, but over the next month or so, month and a half, there'll be one, and then a couple of months after that there'll be another, and then there'll be an album towards the end of the year.
Awesome.
Once I've crossed the T's and dotted the I's, and a little bit more. but it's on the way. So watch this space.
Watch this space for more. Cool, man. So yeah, well, that's really good news, and I'm really looking forward to hear those tracks. And yeah, man, I hope you do really well, and we can start seeing each other again in the dance floors here and there, you know.
Mate, me too. Me too. It's been ages. I just tried to write classic, and I wrote calcic. Yeah, man, it's been ages, but yeah. You know what? Maybe I'll come to Mexico sometime soon. Maybe that would be the quickest way.
Yeah, man. Stay over my place, and you know we can eventually we can get drunk together and slap each other in the face. That would be great.
Yeah, just like old times.
Just like old times, man. Cool, man. So.
Yeah, no, it'll be fun.
That was funny, man. So yeah, cool, man. So anyways, thank you very much for coming, and thank you everyone for tuning in at this late time, and see you guys next week. Yalla, bye bye.
Brilliant.